Sometimes you'll notice that a local var dollar parameter has got to be stored even if it's not used by the class storing it. And here's an example of that. Here's this class C here, and inside we've got this method down there that starts there and ends there. And all the method does is just create a couple of instances of these class 1 and class 2s. And class 1 has got this method in it which uses this parameter, final parameter I, which is passed in, this local parameter there. And class 2 doesn't use that local parameter at all, apparently. All it does is create an instance of class 1. Now that means it, in effect, because class 1 is going to need this I passed into its constructor, it means that it's going to have to be available there, so it is in fact using I even though it doesn't appear to. So if you take a look at how that gets transformed by the compiler, I've had to compress this up to fit it onto the page here, but here we go. Now class C is obviously fairly straightforward. There's a constructor for C, nothing odd about that at all. And here's the example. I said all it does is create these two classes, which of course are going to be called $1 class 1, $1 class 2. And as we'll see, class 2 requires that I. Of course, they both have to have this passed into them because they're not static at all. Because this is a non-static, it's an instance method, non-static method. So the classes, the local class in here are going to be non-static, so they're going to need an enclosing instance of C. Alright, that's the end of that example, and the end of the class. Right, this is class 1, and if you look at the constructor for class 1, because this uses I, it's going to take a parameter which will be the final, which will represent that final I there, and of course an instance of the enclosing class, and it stores that, and it stores that in var $I, and then called super, of course. So we're going to need both of those, really, obviously. And this method M down here is going to access the Z, which it can do fairly accurately without any problem because it's not private or anything. So you can just use this $0 there to get Z, and just plus equals the var $I. Right, if we look at class 2, it's going to transform like that, and it will turn out that we need that, of course, and this $0 as well. So that those two have got to be passed in and stored like that, just like for class 1. And now plus plus Z is just plus plus this $0.z like that, and then we construct this new class 1. This new class 1 there. It's going to have to be a copy of the enclosing class passed to it, which is this $0 is going to have to be passed in, because remember it's got to be type C. So that's passed in, and then var $I, because it needs an instance of I, and the instance of I it's got to get, of course, is the one when this one is class 2 is instantiated. Okay. This is another view of the same issue, and what we've got here is class D as before with this method in it, and two local classes, and this time C2 extends C1. So again, it's faced with the same sort of requirement, and this is how it gets translated this time. First of all, the class D is turned into, well, that basically, which is pretty sort of empty, as it were. Doesn't do a lot, and this time class C1 becomes $1 C1, and as before, pretty much the same thing happens. You need _1 and _2. Those two variables need to be supplied to the constructor, and those are called a super there. And M is as it was before, basically. And now C2 extends C1, so the constructor needs to be modified. And this is what happens. We store them as before, but this time, in fact, the call to super to construct C1, it takes that parameter and the other parameter and passes them to it, like that. And the call to and the method M is as before, basically. Now, if you look closely at this, you'll notice that it doesn't in fact need var $i at all to be stored, which is true, but in fact the compiler does it, so it could in theory optimize that out and remove that entirely, just passing the parameters which have been input to it. But it doesn't. In fact, this is what it actually does. So there's an opportunity there for some small optimization to be carried out.